behind the scenes, it's not been great because the supporters, I think, have kind of turned on him a little bit as a result of that. He has told Newcastle he wants to explore the potential for a move away from the club this season. That, of course, this summer, should I say, that amidst the interest from Liverpool. There is now concrete interest because that offer was made this morning, as I say, for 110 million plus around £5 million in add-ons that Newcastle have turned down for two reasons. One, it doesn't meet the valuation, and two, if they were to sell him, if they were forced to sell him, they would want a top level replacement lined up, and they have not managed to do that so far this window. So it leaves Newcastle in a difficult position. As you rightly say there, we expect Liverpool to come back in with a second formal offer. They're preparing that formal offer as we speak. But Newcastle standing firm, rejecting the first one on those two reasons that I say. So this could be the biggest transfer of the summer. It would be a Premier League record if Liverpool were to get their man, but Newcastle rejecting that first approach from Liverpool this lunchtime as it falls well short of their valuation of the Swedish international.
Keith, given the fact that the informal approach happened a couple of weeks ago, then we've had bid number one, bid number two seems to be coming soon, it would appear. What does that tell us about the timeline of when Liverpool at least want this deal done? We've still got a month left in this transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's plenty of time to do a transfer, but this is a big transfer. It's an eye-watering sum of money. We saw Liverpool do a deal earlier in the window for Florian Wirtz. They wanted to do that early due to the figures that were involved. Similar sort of figures is their first bid here. You know, similar fee that they paid for Florian Wirtz. I don't think this one will drag on until the end of the transfer window. I don't think Newcastle can allow that. There's too many numbers involved. I think Newcastle will want something concrete out of this. You know, a resolution one way or the other, probably within the next 10 days, I would suggest. Newcastle are back from South Korea on Monday morning. Isak will be due back from Spain as well. He's of course over there training on his own. I don't know how much the club were aware that he decided to make that journey out there to do that. However, there's no surprise that he's training and recovering with his own physios and sports scientists, because it's something he does do quite often. Newcastle are comfortable with that relationship, so it's going to be intriguing to see what happens next week when Isak's back and Newcastle are back. There's obviously a chasm between them at the moment, with Newcastle away out in South Korea and Isak in San Sebastian in the Basque region. But I just think this is the sort of transfer Newcastle can't leave until the end of the window. They need to find some kind of resolution to this. But as I say there, Newcastle looking for a replacement, and a top level replacement as well. That doesn't come quickly, that's not easy, it's not cheap. We know they like Benjamin Sesko. Will they decide off the back of this, because Isak's so unsettled? If Liverpool up their bid to allow him to go, they will probably have to throw the kitchen sink at Benjamin Sesko to get him, because we know that Manchester United are really interested in him as well. So yeah, look, I think it will rumble on a bit, but I honestly don't think this is going to go on until the dying embers of the transfer window, due to the, as you rightly say, the seismic proportion of this transfer.
You mentioned a little bit there about Alexander Isak, you know, how he's recovering physically from that minor thigh injury earlier in the summer. But what about, I suppose, his mental state and his stance right now towards where his future is likely to head?
Yeah, well, look, that was the official line. That Isak had a minor thigh injury, and that's why he didn't travel with Newcastle on their pre-season tour. But look, without doubt, Newcastle and Eddie Howe wanted Isak with them. They didn't want him recovering by himself. Clearly, in addition to that, that was a bit of a smokescreen for the fact that his head has been turned by Liverpool's interest in him. Their unofficial approach a couple of weeks ago, they've made it clear they want to add him to their striking ranks. And I think at this stage of his career, 25, almost 26, he sees this as a real sweet spot in terms of moving. Yeah, and he also feels that, you know, he was promised, or he was told he would get paid more at Newcastle than what he is at the moment. He would receive a pay rise and a contract extension. That hasn't come about. Those talks have been shelved, and we're stood here, and it's a bit of an impasse. So look, his head is turned without doubt. Newcastle are hugely frustrated by the situation. I think frustrated even more by the fact that they can't sit round the table with him and talk, due to the fact, as I said, he's in Spain and they're in South Korea. And it's getting to the stage where something is going to have to give here, because his relationship with the supporters has become strained at best. I can see some of the things that are written on social media. The fans not happy about the way he's gone about things, but he's obviously felt, and his representatives have felt, that if he is to get the dream move to Liverpool, he's going to have to agitate to some extent, and that is what he's doing at the moment. It'll be up to Newcastle whether they allow that agitation to move to become a transfer, and he will get his way. If they don't, Eddie Howe is going to have to do the mother of all man management jobs this summer to get Alexander Isak's head, and not just his body, into the right shape ahead of the new season, because without doubt he's been hugely affected by everything this summer, hence why he is away from the squad right now, training on his own over in the Basque region.
Yeah, and you know, Alexander Isak and the outcome of this situation with him, that will necessarily colour the complexion of this transfer window for Newcastle. But just put into context overall, that aside, Keith, of how challenging it's been for Eddie Howe's side.
David, it's been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster for Newcastle this summer. This was a window where they wanted to strengthen. Remember, they've not added really anyone significantly for the past 3 windows. They've held back their finances to have a real go at it this summer ahead of a Champions League campaign. I reckon they had at least 125, 130 million pounds to spend before sales. They've already sold Sean Longstaff to Leeds United. They had money to spend. They were looking to add a goalkeeper, a central defender, a right winger and a forward. They've only managed to add the right winger in the shape of Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest. They're still looking for those other 3 positions. I actually think they're probably looking for another midfielder as well, off the back of Longstaff moving to Leeds. If Isak was to go, they then need 2 forwards. All they've got left is young Will Asula, 21-year-old, who there was a chance he might have been sent out on loan. So it leaves them so light in attack, and that is why I say Newcastle will not allow Isak to go until they have got a top-level replacement, and they're few and far between at the moment, aren't they? I mean, we're 4 weeks left of the transfer window. A lot of the activity has taken place already. They did not think they would be in this situation, and they've not even managed to replace Callum Wilson. They're trying to sign Johan Wissa from Brentford, but Brentford digging their heels in there, so they can't even. They're struggling to even bring in a backup striker at the moment. So to lose Isak as well would just be sort of self-sabotage of the highest order. Like they do not want that to happen, so they need to have some kind of assurances that they've got someone to come in, like a Šeško, maybe like an Ollie Watkins, someone like that, a top-level striker to come in and take his place. It's the worst possible scenario for Newcastle in this transfer window. Eddie Howe wanted players in quickly. He said that at the end of last season he wanted the club to act quickly and diligently. They've not done that. They've tried for a number of players, missed out for a number of different reasons, and they're stood in this position where they're scrambling around with a week to go, and that is before you add the Alexander Isak situation on top of that. So it has been a disaster for Newcastle this summer. They've got a month, should I say, to try and make up for that. But I think it's really difficult when this Alexander Isak situation is overshadowing their whole recruitment drive.